go. Hi, Wendy.
Hello.
So folks, let's just, if you don't mind, if we could just go around the room real quick and have you guys introduce who you are, where you teach, what you teach. Since I didn't prepare anything too formal tonight because I didn't know what kind of experience people have with Scratch. So are you a complete newbie? Have you played with it a little bit? Where do you think you are on the continuum of as a Scratch user? So Diana, do you want to go first? Uh-oh, Diana froze. So Anne, we'll go to you and hopefully Diana gets back.
Good evening. I'm Ann Pudens from Coon Rapids Bayard School District. I am the K-12 technology integrationist for our district. So I'm kind of leading computer science at our district. I teach second, third, fourth, and fifth grade computer science, and I'm helping our high school teacher right now get endorsed so we can offer some more high school classes next year and sequential years after that. So that's pretty exciting. I've dabbled in Scratch a little bit here and there, but I actually just enrolled in your class, Ben. So
awesome.
I'm learning more every day.
Wendy.
Okay. And I'm at a ball game, so I apologize for extra noise. I'm in Fort Madison, and I'm in a new position this year. They added a K-6 computer science integration coach position. And it's currently half-time, and then the other half of the day, I teach 4th through 6th grade computer science at the middle school. And my experience with Scratch was last summer through AEA. I did one of your courses, so I hear your voice, and I want to say places, everyone. So
Awesome.
I'd say I'm a newbie, but we're using code.org, and we have some kids that have gotten far ahead, and we're looking for ways to maybe get them on Scratch.
Okay. Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Moore. I'm with New Boco on the education team, and I taught middle school and elementary. And then my experience really with Scratch is that we have workshops over the weekends for elementary students, and we often use Scratch.
Sure.
And I feel like I get in a Scratch rut, like how to push them further than just design a game. And so I'm always looking for new ideas on how to use Scratch. Ben, I apologize. I started your course this summer and had really good intentions, and then everything got crazy, and
Yep.
I need to revisit or rejoin because it had great ideas and lots of good things in there. So
Okay.
Thanks for putting that all together.
Oh, no problem. All right, and maybe Diana will come back or not. She looked like she was having some technical. So I don't have to give my what is Scratch spiel. It's by the sounds of things. It sounds like all three of you know what Scratch is, right? And what it can do, I guess, right? I'm going to share my screen and let's. Can you see the Scratch screen? Okay, good. It didn't highlight it, so I was not convinced I grabbed the right screen there when it's on a different monitor. Yeah. So again, just the 2-minute quick overview. Scratch has been around for a little over a decade now. I've been working with Scratch for about a decade now. We started offering some workshops at UNI in Scratch about a year after it came out. And what several of you talked about was the fact that about 6 years ago, we got some money from Google to develop an online course, some online materials to train teachers in Scratch. We'd been doing it face-to-face, 20 teachers at a time the first couple of years that we were doing our training, and Google liked what we were doing, and so they gave us some money to take it online. And I've been teaching it now online every summer and a couple times, sometimes during the school year, not during COVID. Nobody wanted to take it during COVID. You guys have enough on your plate than to doing this. But and so I've been doing a lot with Scratch. I teach the CS Ed courses at UNI, and so we do Scratch with both our elementary pre-service teachers and our secondary pre-service teachers, because I actually think Scratch is a great way even for my secondary teaching majors, who some of them have done some programming, but most of them have not. And so I want them to see sort of what the fundamentals are of Scratch or what the fundamentals of programming are. And Scratch is a great way to get you at those first fundamentals, those first 6 or 7 key concepts of programming without worrying about all that screwy syntax, right? And so that's sort of the initial start of things. What do you guys want to know about? What do you want to talk about? What would be most beneficial? Because I can go all sorts of different directions, but I want to give you what you guys need. So what do you want to talk about?
What's Scratch Junior? I've heard about it, but I don't really know what's the difference between Scratch and Scratch Junior.
Perfect. So Scratch Junior is a separate product that was originally developed in part because until about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Scratch didn't run on iPads. Scratch 2.0 was Flash based, so it didn't run on iPads. And so Scratch Junior was created in part to have something on iPads because you had all these school districts with iPads that they couldn't run Scratch on. But it's also I don't want to say it's a simplified version of Scratch. It is, though, a simplified version. It's got some different blocks that Scratch doesn't have, and vice versa, right? So a Venn diagram, they've got a lot of similarity, but both have some things the other doesn't have. And it's really designed as a product for, pre-K, first, second grade maybe kind of thing. Very low reading level. I think I haven't played extensively with it, but my memory of it is that there's almost everything's graphical, even in the words on the blocks and things are designed so that non-readers can program better. What else? So I heard you guys talking about, go ahead. Yeah, Wendy.
I was just looking for some integration ideas, and I don't know if you know of a site or some place where there would be like a collection of just ideas to get us started with integrating it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a couple of things I would point out. First of all, if you are you familiar with Scratch Ed as a website? So Scratch Ed is a separate, and it's not going to come up in my browser. Scratch Ed is in and of itself a different website. There it is. It's out of Harvard. And it is a resource for teachers who are looking for lesson plan ideas, worksheet activities, and things like that. And so if I were trying to get some good news stuff, I would start here and start looking through some of the resources. Here's some stuff on music to math, Scratch across every subject, right? So there would be some things that, and again, I'm not deeply familiar. It's been a while since I've looked at this, but I know there's a lot of stuff in here with different ideas for integrating it across different curricula. And this is a really great resource also, just because one of the things I wanted to talk about, so several of you said you've taken you've taken or you started the Scratch class that I run. This, if you're not familiar with the creative computing curriculum, this is a curriculum that uses Scratch that's really not a curriculum in the traditional sense of, here's lesson 1, here's lesson 2, here's lesson 3, although a lot of that is there, but it's just this great collection of dozens of activities in modules, and you can pick and choose which activities you use. Allison, you were talking about working with kids with Scratch on a weekend program. When Corey and I launched the Coder Dojo in Cedar Falls, Waterloo, a couple of years ago, we took this Scratch creative computing curriculum and built our entire dojo program off of this curriculum package. Should be a really nice PDF here somewhere, and now it's not hanging right at the top. But there, couple hundred pages. There's workbooks and reflection pages that you can use with this. And like I say, it gets divided up into units that sort of just start by having the kids explore, see what they can do without any real teaching of anything. And then eventually you start to say, okay, well, let's just say, what could you do if you only had 10 blocks available to you? And they give you just, let's write a program with only these 10 blocks. And basically you just create, movement, simple animations, but you start to build up the idea of vocabulary, of algorithms and creating animations and getting into loops and all of that. And actually, the class that I teach was developed before this curriculum, but one of the things I liked about it when I looked at this curriculum was they're using exactly the same structure and sequence of things that we do in what we had developed a couple of years ago. So that's another great resource for you, is this creative computing curriculum out of Harvard.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'll have to spend some time looking through that. There's some good ideas in there.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, what I loved about it was that from a after school program, much more loosey goosey kind of thing, where sometimes kids come on a Saturday or after school, and then they might not come for a month or two. It had a great way to sort of set up. Here's 8 activities, and if you want to earn your white belt in the dojo, you have to do 5 of these activities and show them to a mentor. And we just sort of built up a progression of how the kids earned their belts from that.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have other ideas for like how to go further in Scratch?
What do you mean by further? Further you, further the kids?
I guess either one. Yeah, I guess for either like our own professional or learning, but also just, and I think this, like you said, the creative computing probably has great ideas for like how to push them to that next level of, you're not quite done, here's something else that you can do.
So one of the things that I always do in my college classroom, and that we did it with when I was working with the dojo here in town, was once kids started to get comfortable with Scratch, I would encourage them to go out and find a program on Scratch that they liked. Okay. And then we always called it the remix challenge, and so either take what they have there and remix it and make it, you can, anything you like, you can almost always say that would be good, but it would be better if I just did this, right? And so what do you do to integrate new features into a game, into a story or whatever? And actually that's something I'm really, it doesn't come out in my online 6-week MOOC because the interaction with each other isn't there, but I'm really in my own classroom really starting to like this idea of encouraging kids to take an existing program and add it, change it, modify it, extend it, create a new game entirely or a new story entirely, but using features of that. And I like it for 2 or 3 reasons. Primarily because I think we spend so much time though early with kids teaching them how to write code from nothing. And the whole point of Scratch was being able to share and remix. And I want kids to be able to look at code and figure out how it works and why, right? And so that's just a simple thing, but I'm a big believer now of find something that you think is really cool, figure out how it works, and then modify it or add to it or whatever. Because the reality is, for many people who go into programming, they're going into jobs where they're maintaining somebody else's code, right? They're working with existing code, and so that's a great skill to learn even at a young age, when it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I think teaching them that that's okay. That's part of computer science, is looking at those codes and being able to explain how they work. And also, I think that would be valuable too for the kids that struggle to come up with something. That gives them a place to start, and they get to see it from a point, if they can find a really cool game that they're engaged with. Yep. They get to really be able to have some ownership and engage with that. Yep.
And some kid, the thing that I like about that's fun about that activity is I think that it's really easily adaptable for different kids. You'll have some kids who will find a Pong game and like the idea of the Pong game, but they want to make their own Pong game with their own costumes and their own theme and all of that. And so that what they end up doing, sometimes they remix and then they just change it, but more often they start from nothing on a parallel screen and start to develop their code, using the ideas in that first one. But others really like that idea of, again, I think if you came through my Scratch MOOC, one of the ones I do is take the Harry Potter story and add something new to it. I want you to integrate something new into the existing thing, because those are related but different skills. So. The other thing that I think that when you say, what can we do to get kids to push on things, to go, to go further than they might normally go, or how can we push ourselves? I actually really like looking at, sorry, I went that very quickly there, right? It's really easy to look at the standard blocks here and stay in just the standard blocks. But if you didn't know, there's this, they've now got everything this set of extensions. And so, yeah. Pen used to be the very, very first thing we did when I taught Scratch, and now Pen's been relegated to an extension. But I like some of the material that's in here for kids who sort of learned the fundamentals of Scratch, but you want to give them a different domain to work in. And so, using the pen to draw different artwork, using different music, using the built-in video camera. It's not in Scratch itself, but I just played the other day. Scratch has a new feature that's in their sandbox beta playground, where you can use the camera built into your device and Scratch, and you can program your own for lack of a better word, Instagram filters. So you can actually have kids program so that the clown nose follows their nose and the hat stays on their head even as they're moving and things like that. And it turns out the code is pretty basic, because it's just a block that sort of says follow the nose with this costume. But it gives them a way, again, to think about the code they're writing and to start to connect it to things they're witnessing on on their phones or something like that. And that's another thing that I think is great as you're playing more with Scratch and trying to push on Scratch, is getting kids to see Scratch not as its own separate little toy, but as a as a sandbox to do things similar to what they see when they play games on their phone, or play with Instagram or something like that. And again, so these are really simple. You just, if you want to do any of these, you just click on one, and then it adds a block, a couple of blocks in right at the bottom of your existing things. And so this text to speech is very fun if you're doing storytelling and you want to have the story actually tell itself rather than just speech bubbles come up.
Sorry, Ben, did you say the like the AI, the one that you're just talking about? How do you find that?
Yeah, that one wasn't in Scratch itself. That was in,
okay.
I'm gonna, Scratch beta sandbox, I think is what, yeah. So it's this universe sandbox, I thought. No. Oh no, this isn't it. Maybe it wasn't called Sandbox with Scratch. I will try to find it and reach out to you guys.
Well, that's just fine, yeah.
Because now I'm not finding it, and I don't know why it's not coming up.
I wonder, like, was it linked within the Hour of Code stuff with all the AI things?
It was not. I stumbled.
Okay.
Well, let me rephrase that. It might have been. I didn't find it through that. I found it through a post on a discussion board that I read.
Okay.
what else? I mean, is there a particular kind of program you'd like to take a look at? Is there something? We still got 9 minutes. Man. Trying to see if I got any great programs I should share with you. Well, I mean, you were talking a little bit about integration, Wendy, and how do we, show this. Now, this program would probably not be something that a kid could write themselves without maybe some helper functions that we write and give them. But this was a sort of a proof of concept thing that I did a couple of years ago, where I took a bunch of data about Hurricane Irma and the wind speeds and the latitude and longitude of the center of the hurricane, and created this map of the track of the hurricane. And the different colors you see there are based on the intensity of the hurricane, right? So I think red was Cat 5 and orange was Cat 4, or maybe it was the other way around. And so each of these is just a track of the wind and its intensity. And the way that this was working, and the reason that I was playing with this was, and when I use this in my college classroom, what I'm really interested in is showing them how we use lists of data, right? And so again, a little more advanced than you'd do with a third grader, right? But we can look at the latitude and longitude at different timestamps, and that gets translated to an X and Y coordinate on the screen. That's what this translate block does, is it translates it to the XY coordinates of the screen, and then can draw things out. The other one we did when we were playing with this same idea that same year was we looked at a map that could draw the route of every RAGBRAI route from the very first year through its 40th year. It's a simple little program once you see it, but you have to be able to understand a little bit of mathematics for the translation. Again, one of the things that I always will encourage you to do along the lines of the remix challenges is the what do these do challenges. And so I really have started playing more and more with, here's a mystery method. What's this going to do? And having the kids in groups talk about what do they think this is going to do. So they see that there's this repeat 20 times, and inside of that there's a repeat 4 times. And so they start to dig down in and say, oh, wait a minute, this is gonna, if this is 4 with 90, that's a square. So I'm making 20 squares, and what does it do? And I mean, so what this does is sort of a spirograph effect, right? But again, from a challenging the kids to look at things a little bit differently, how is this going to work? What's it going to do? What would I do differently if I wanted to change this? And so from a mathematics perspective, we're talking about integration and different things. From a mathematics perspective, what happens if I change this from 18 degrees to 50 degrees, right? How does that? And so that makes the squares further apart to begin with, but then because I said I want to draw 20 of them, it actually makes multiple passes around the circle.
Yeah, I really like that idea of switching it and looking at the code first and then the output.
Yeah. Like I say, I think that that's something that in my early days of teaching Scratch, I didn't focus on. I really always focused with kids on how to actually program, write code. And I didn't spend a lot of time on really looking at code. One of the things I really like about the creative curriculum from Harvard that we looked at was every unit there's a series of debug activities. So 5 small activities where they say, here's a program that's supposed to do something in particular. Let me see if I can, I know I've got some of them here. I should do. I thought I could search my own stuff, not just. Here we go. So here's a debug it activity that I've used with some of my students. You know, we want to have this cat move around by using the mouse pointer, and he does, right? Did I fix this one? There must have been, that's not the one I want then.
You debugged it too well.
I debug, you know, this is something that I do, and it drives me nuts that I do it myself. You know, because when you change code, if a student asks in class about a program that you've shared with them, and you forget to make a copy and modify the copy, you're changing what you've shared with them, and the next year it's broken.
Do you have any other, like the debugging is good. Do you have any other good ideas about like encouraging collaboration on work projects?
So that to me is still one of the biggest challenges with Scratch is they do not have any way to have two kids work on the same program simultaneously, right? The only thing you can do is have a kid work on a program for a while and then share it, and then another kid could remix it. But of course, when they remix it, they're making a copy of that first kid's code and they're modifying their copy, not the team-based copy. And I understand sort of why Scratch doesn't allow that. It's another level of complexity that I don't think they want to get into trying to program. But I have not yet seen a good solution for good peer programming. The best I've seen for collaboration is paired programming with the whole idea of a navigator and a driver, right? The idea that, you know, that's the best I've been able to do. I actually sort of, in some ways, that's one of the things I like about Zoom for all of this now, because when I used to do paired programming in the classroom, you would see that one kid get frustrated, that you'd see the navigator get frustrated and reach over and grab the mouse and just do something, right? With Zoom, if I'm sharing my screen with you and you don't like what I'm doing, you can't go grab my mouse and say, no, I mean this. And so you have to use your words.
Good point. Yep.
What else? We got a minute and a half left. Any other quick questions I can? You can see I do a little bit of everything, right? I've got games, I've got video, animation, I've got. We were talking about fractal geometry one time and self-replicating things, and so this is a chaos game that is randomly. What it's doing right now is it's randomly picking from these three dots. And so you see the blue dot, it randomly picks one of the three dots and it moves the blue dot halfway between where it is and the dot that it picked. Right? So if the dot is here and it picks this blue dot here, it finds what's the midway point and it plots that point. And while that seems very chaotic and random, and it is chaotic and random, you get this really intriguing pattern, which if you're a mathematician, there's this thing called the Sierpinski triangle. Has nothing to do with Scratch at all, but it's kind of fun, and it's a different way to use Scratch, right? So, well, thanks, guys. Again, please feel free to reach out to me if you've got questions. It sounds like many of you know who I am and through my Scratch MOOC and things like that. And if I can answer more questions on Scratch outside of this, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to try to answer questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.